and welcome back to this Return to Wellbeing series. My name is Taylor Staines from the Active Harbour team at Harbour District Council. I'm here with the co-presenters Hussein Khan and Jake Bertoni from South Leicestershire School Sports Partnership.
Hi, I am Jake and I'm the Health Wellbeing Officer at the Learning South Leicestershire School Sports Partnership. The Return to Wellbeing podcast series will focus on supporting children's mental health needs as lockdown is gradually lifted and they return back to school. In today's episode, we'll be talking about physical activity and its links to mental health.
Hussein and I am the Development Manager at the Learning South Leicestershire School Sports Partnership. I would like to welcome our special guest, Dr. Jackie Hargreaves, who is a Senior Lecturer in Sport and Exercise Psychology at Leeds Beckett University. So, Dr. Hargreaves, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, as you said, my name is Dr. Jackie Hargreaves. My background is in exercise and mental health. So I've worked with people who have mental health problems and look at how we can use exercise to help live with mental health problems, and to also how we can help people engage in exercise. But also looking at it in terms of how we can enhance general well-being as well. So not just in terms of mental health problems, but our own general well-being.
Brilliant. So how often should children and adults do physical activity?
So there are different guidelines for different ages of children. So for under 5s, they're actually encouraged to do 180 minutes a day, which sounds like a lot, but I think if you know under 5s or have under 5-year-olds, you'll know that they're naturally very active. So it's promoting that, it's working with that, it's trying to reduce sedentary time. Now, for the parents out there with little ones, sometimes we need them to sit still so we can get on with other jobs, or at the moment, obviously, just get on with work. But it is trying to reduce the sedentary time, so the amount of time that they are sat watching or sat on computer games. So it's trying to reduce that and encourage the natural movement that the under 5s especially have. And there's obviously plenty of ways you can do that. It doesn't have to be formal sports. It's just being active. It's just moving. For the 5 to 18-year age range, the recommendations are 60 minutes a day of activity. And again, that doesn't have to be an hour of sport a day. That can be any ways of moving, as long as you're increasing the heart rate. And for the big age range, 5 to 18, so whatever is suitable for that population group, and just as long as they're moving. It doesn't have to be sport. So an hour a day. For adults, the guidelines are a bit different in that we look at it over a week. So 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous exercise a week. So when we say moderate to vigorous, moderate would be where you're starting to get out of breath, but you can still talk to the person next to you. So you might be up for a brisk walk, you might be playing tennis, where you're still able to sort of have those discussions, but you can feel your body getting a bit warmer, you're starting to get a bit out of breath. Vigorous is more you're out of breath, and you can feel that you're working hard, and that you are getting hotter, you might be sweating. So that's more than vigorous. If you're doing vigorous exercise, you only need to do 75 minutes of that. So there is sort of this range of, it's 150 minutes if it's all moderate, but if you're doing the more vigorous exercise, then you don't have to do as much of it. The other thing to remember as an adult, this is the same for older adults as well, is that we should be doing strength training twice a week, which I think are often forgotten in the guidelines. So that can be something like, you're lifting your heavy shopping bags. But it might be doing yoga, Pilates, it might be doing actual strength training in the gym, but it's something that we often forget about, I think, as adults. So that is as important going forward into your older adult years, that we maintain some strength and flexibility. So doing things like yoga, Pilates can really help in keeping that up as we progress through our adulthood. And then the other thing, again, with the adult guidelines is reducing our sedentary time. So it's all right to focus on the physical activity, but it's also to think, okay, I've been sat down for quite a while now, I should move in some way, whether that's just standing up, doing some stretching. And the guidelines for adults is no more than 2 hours of TV a day, or that's what's suggested. But there's issues with that, obviously. a lot of us have sedentary jobs. So, you have to sit down for long periods of time, but just try and break that up a bit. So that's the guidelines in a nutshell.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Jackie. I think most people are aware of the physical benefits of physical activity and exercise, whether it being to help us maintain a healthy body weight, or reduce the risk of certain types of diseases when we get older. Can you tell us a little bit about the impact of exercise and physical activity on mental health?
Yeah, so I guess this is where I've done my own research, and there is a lot of scientific evidence, especially, it depends how you want to look at this. If you want to look at it in terms of clinical mental health problems or general well-being, and of course we all have mental health, and we all have times where we have good mental health and we have good days, and then we have times where we have bad days. We all have that. But for some people it goes over into a clinical diagnosis, whether that's something like depression or anxiety, which are more talked about and more common in society, or if it's a more severe mental health problem, which can develop sort of late adolescence, such as schizophrenia, bipolar disorder. There's a whole range of different mental health conditions out there. Where there is most scientific evidence is for the more common mental health problems, such as depression and anxiety. In that, there's some evidence that looks at the guidelines, so the amount of exercise, so suggesting if you do 150 minutes a week of moderate to vigorous intensity exercise, then you're less likely to suffer or to live with depression.
I think this next question sort of extends onto that. So this one is asking, so can exercise reduce the risk of developing mental health disorders?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and it can, and again, there is evidence for that. So the evidence that's out there they call it longitudinal evidence. So they'll look at a certain time point. So in adolescence, for instance, how much physical activity are teenagers, adolescents doing, and what is their mental health, or how do they feel at that current time? And they might look at things like self-esteem and their confidence in themselves and their actual mood and their mental health at the time. And then 5 years later, they'll do the same questionnaires and see if there's been a relationship, and they might do the same like another 5 years later, just to track and see, is there the relationship? So there is the evidence that the more active you are when you're young, the less likely you are to have mental health problems when you're in adulthood. Now, you have to keep up activity, so it's not a case of, you're really active when you're a teenager, and then you stop when you get to 20, and then you'll be okay in terms of your mental health. It's obviously not as simple as that, but yeah, there's definitely the evidence that the more active you are as you're young, the less likely you are to have mental health problems as you get older. And there's different reasons for that. There's different reasons, and we don't know the exact reason. In that it could be that being active makes you feel better about who you are, so it does impact on your self-esteem, and therefore there's a relationship as well between self-esteem and mental health problems. So the better you feel about who you are and the confidence you have in yourself, the less likely that you'll have mental health problems. So doing that as you're growing up, as a child, as a teenager, it can give you strength, mental strength as well as physical strength in who you are, give you the confidence that can then be a protective factor as you get older. But it could also be the chemistry of the brain. So we know that when you exercise, there are different chemicals that are released. It might be actually that those chemicals are released after exercise, but it's this releasing chemicals that can actually change your brain structure in a positive way. And that in itself could be a protective factor going forward in terms of your mental health. But say it isn't a case of you do it when you're young and then you can stop. It's something that you need to keep up. And actually, if we get those healthy habits, behaviours, and enjoy it when you're younger, you're more likely to keep it going.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much. My next question, before we go on to sort of student submissions, is one of the tasks of these podcasts, and one of the aims is to try and normalise mental health and try and detach the stigma attached to mental health for young people. So my question to you is, it's a two sort of pronged question, is because there is a little bit of a stigma attached to mental health, how do we normalise mental health? And my second question is, how do we normalise physical activity as part of our daily routine? Because obviously during the lockdown period, with a lot of people, it's been proven, have increased their physical activity levels, but a lot of people have reduced their physical activity levels as well.
Normalising, yeah. So there's a lot of work being done at the moment in terms of trying to reduce the stigma of mental health and mental health problems, and it is something that as a society we are talking about more, which is great. So it is becoming more normal. So talking is definitely a way of doing it. The problem, I guess, with talking is sometimes that people talk, but then they might be talking to people that don't necessarily know what to do with that information. So it's finding the right. It's definitely talking to the peers, but it's also finding the right sort of outlet, and it's finding what works for individuals, and everyone's so different. For some people, obviously talking to a family member, talking to the best friend, or talking to the friends will be the best thing they can do. Other people, definitely just being honest. As a society, we are getting better, but yeah, it's not an easy solution, and it's not easy to talk. And that's why I think physical activity can really help, because you don't have to talk. And it can help to reframe. For some people, talking is really difficult, but it can help to reframe the thoughts without necessarily having to talk to somebody else. And actually, physical activity itself might then be the release. So because they feel more motivated and a bit more confident, people can then actually potentially start to talk about how they feel afterwards. Talking, writing, for some people, writing will be their outlet. Everyone will have a different outlet. It's finding what works for the individuals. Normalising physical activity, so it becomes the norm. It's again not easy. And a lot of it's about the language you use for both mental health and for physical activity. I used to have physical activity a lot and tried to move away from sport, because sport is scary to some people. They have horrible memories of it from childhoods, and if you're not the good one in your class, then you don't enjoy it. So it's reframing that we don't have to be sporty. We could just be moving. We could be doing the gardening. We could be doing the shopping. We can just move more, and it's important that what we do is fun and engaging. In lockdown, we saw this change. There hasn't been much evidence produced yet, but there's been lots of research going on to how our behaviours changed during lockdown. And I think at the beginning, where we were basically told exercise is a human right. And it was sort of nice to hear that it's the only thing you can leave your house for, is to exercise. And in this country, and it's different in every country. So it was a really nice sort of public health message in a way, that you're told that this is essential to your well-being, so you can do it.
Really good answers, to be fair. So we've had a few student submissions from the Robert Smythe Academy in Leicestershire. And one of the questions sort of again leads on from your answer to the last question. I've enjoyed going for walks during the lockdown period. Is it true that fresh air and green spaces are good for your mental health?
Absolutely. And there is quite a lot of evidence that's looked at green space and mental health, and also evidence that's looking at blue space, so being near water, whether that's seas, rivers. So absolutely, being outdoors can have a real boost. And what we don't know is if it's the physical activity that enhances the mental health and how you feel, or if it's the green space and being outdoors. And there is a sense of freedom, I think, that people feel, especially in the lockdown situation, this sense of freedom of being outside, that you don't get in a more static environment. So, whether that's in a gym or in your own house, you just don't get that sense of freedom. Fresh air, just breathing in, cooler air, definitely can be beneficial. And again, I'll say that in terms of it's not the same for everyone. So for some people, absolutely, being outside helps. But some people have real acute anxiety about being outside. So for them, actually, exercising inside might be beneficial, and actually might help them to get outside. So there is, again, different reason, different for everyone, but on the whole, yes, being outside helps. There's the green space argument. Obviously, some people are fortunate. They live in the country or they live close to green space. Some people don't. They live in urban spaces where it is more built up, and there is evidence that green space is better than your urban spaces. But even still, getting out and getting that fresh air can still be beneficial.
Brilliant. So we have one more student submission as well, and it's in relation to motivation. You briefly touched upon that. The question is, how can I start exercising when I've just lost all motivation to do anything?
This is hard. It's incredibly hard. It's hard to be active even when you are motivated. So even if you're following a plan, you're a fit, active person, you're following a plan, or you've got your routine, you go to the gym or whatever 3 times a week. Even that can be hard. You might be in a good frame of mind. Sometimes the thought of going, you just can't be bothered. But then when you're feeling low, it's even harder to get yourself to do anything. So it's hard. And I think in a way it's the same tips or the same sort of response really. If you're in the depths of like a depression or something, your mind just isn't on your body. Your mind, you're completely consumed by your thoughts. And then motivating yourself to do anything can be really difficult. So some of the people I've spoken to, the way that they do it, or what they've done is actually they've used things like mindfulness apps or CDs, in that it helps them to take their mind off their thoughts and actually focus on their body a bit. So actually the focus on their body then helps them to motivate to actually do some activity. And it's also a case of, starting low, doing something small, or just doing something. So you might have intended to go to the gym, or you might have intended to go for a run, but you just have no motivation. You can't do that. Your mind's just like, it's not happening today. Whether that's through tiredness or just your thoughts won't let you, then just go for a 5-minute walk. Just do something, and actually doing something can actually motivate you to do more. So it's doing something low. Don't feel guilty about not doing what you intended to do. If you intended to do something, it's just doing something which might motivate you to do more. And then, as I say, it might be if you have no intention to do anything, you have to have some intention to do it. If you don't have that, so sometimes it is about actually having an intention, and that might come from somebody else. It might be you find somebody suggests something to you, and actually it sparks something that makes you think, I do need to do something. And maybe that's where actually you just need to somehow focus on the body, have some focus on the body rather than being sort of consumed by those thoughts. And then that might help you to move your body more. And then one of the key things you can do is have a buddy who will help you. So, if you've dedicated, if somebody has said to you, let's go out at this time, you're much more likely to do it. So if you've got a buddy who you can do it with, whatever it is, any exercise, any movement, you're much more likely to do it. And it is also having a plan. So actually, if you start the week, have a look at where you can do it, and then try and do it. If you've written it down, you're more likely to do it. But on the other hand, it's also, don't feel too guilty if you can't do on that day. Just do something. It doesn't have to be whatever, the full hour you plan to say. It could just be 5 minutes to get you moving, to get you just started.
Amazing, that's great. So our final question. So do you have any top tips for teenagers to get more active?
Make it fun. Okay, so don't feel like you've got to go out and do like a 20-minute run. For some people running is amazing. For other people it's not pleasant. It hurts. It's like you get hot and sweaty, and it's painful. It's quite intense running. So do something that you enjoy. And I don't know at what age trampoline parks become not cool, but there is and I know there's like Ninja Warrior parks popping up. There is there is various things out there that you could do, but it is reframing it so you're not thinking you have to do sport. Do something that you are comfortable with, but try and make it as fun as you can. Do it with your mates. Do something.
That's great. Well, thank you for talking to us today, and thank you for listening to this episode in this series. If you have any questions about anything we have discussed, please comment below.